Welcome back to Real Simple News with Cale McCullough on Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. Although it is after midnight at this point in time, it is still issue number 23. Real Simple News is an open source news organization that you can contribute to on GitHub at github.com/Real Simple News. And then you have to go into the repository called Real Simple News to get to the issue tickets. And in there, if the show is online, it will be opened. If not, it will be closed after the show. You could also find it at realsimplenews.net. In this next news story from the Daily Mail, President Trump blames the, quote, radical left anarchist, end quote, after federal agents are hit with explosives. President Trump on Sunday claimed lamestream media was trying to portray the radical left anarchist as, quote, peaceful protesters, unquote, after explosives were fired at federal agents. So let's take a look at this. I was looking for this in the show. I thought it was going to be up in the thing before, but it wasn't. So where is the video? Here's video of protesters firing projectiles, and they pull a fence outside of the Justice Center. Yeah, they hate that fence, don't they? I'm really actually kind of shocked that the city of Portland is actually fining the feds for putting up that fence. They're fining them some astronomical amount of money per 15 minutes or something. It's I'm not sure exactly where they get this notion of a what they think a peaceful protest exactly is. Guess I don't have audio for myself. What else do we got in here? Here is the picture I was looking for. This is what they've been doing. They've been taping together multiple fireworks together. I don't know what's going on in this image. Is that like... I'm presuming they set one of those off there, but I don't know exactly how that happened. Here's a video of fireworks go off as protesters continue to clash with federal officers. laser pointer thing is obviously malicious when trying to find federal officers. I don't think that we should stand for this. If you want to legalize drugs, so you're not seeing the police in the that's one thing. But just trying to harm somebody who's serving the country, that's just messed up.
Blue Street! Blue Street!
Enough of this one. Let's move on to something else. Here's real brutality. This is from our next article is from the New York Post. Some 120 said to be killed or wounded in attack in southern Darfur, according to the UN. More than 60 people were reported killed and nearly 60 others wounded during an armed attack in a village in Sudan's Restive Darfur region on Saturday, the United Nations officer for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said on Sunday. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Human Affairs, the attack in the Mastery village in the West Darfur state was one of the latest in a series of security incidences reported over the last week that left several villages and houses burned, markets and shops looted, and infrastructure damaged, according to the UN body added in a statement. It did not cite the source of its information. There was no official word from the government on the incident, and Reuters was not able to reach officials for comment. Sudan said Sunday it would deploy joint forces from various state security services in Darfur after renewed violence there recently. SUNA, the state news agency, reported. The forces will be deployed to the region's 5 states to, quote, protect people and secure the agricultural season, end quote. Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok said during a meeting in Karmdok in a delegation of women from Darfur. No details were given. So, real fascists have a very long history of targeting your food supply. This is something that these privileged Americans that are complaining about how they didn't get everything handed to them and how some people were so much more lucky than them and that nobody else gets picked on. I mean, I got a friend who is a libertarian, but he's been like siding with the BLM people. And he's been posting a lot about racism, complaining about racism that, complaining about discrimination. And it's like he wants to blame why he's not very successful on white people. And the real reason why is because he has a kid. And it's just really hard to do that. And people also pick on white people and bully them too. I was a fat kid growing up. I was picked on. I was bullied. I've been beat up and jumped by people a number of times. I've had to watch the women that I like get with other guys and not to be able to enjoy life because I got canceled by libs. So there's a lot of discrimination that happens. And there's a little bit there's something that's called a spine. And there's something, it's something that men have. And it's kind of hard to break unless you hit it in the wrong place. And it's able to lift a lot of weight. And there's something called two hands. And they can build things. And if people fuck with you, you can knock them out. That's called real talk, yo. You don't really actually even need anybody. So look at my example. I got canceled. I put all of my efforts into engineering. I got through engineering, most of my engineering program. I ran out of financial aid because I'd spent too much time at a community college, and caught me off guard, and wasn't able to graduate, and dropped out of my classes, so I didn't pass the classes that term. Took some time off of school, and then I went back to engineering school. I struggled through it. I did not pass all my classes. I failed. I got kicked out. I was discriminated against because I had gotten complex post-traumatic stress disorder, more technically legal abuse syndrome, from having to be dragged through a third-party child custody situation when my child was kidnapped by a radical feminist in order to get back at me. This was my first experience at angry feminists abusing the system in order to get what they want, and making children the victim. This was when I realized that the state of Oregon, which is run by Democrats, is horribly mismanaged. They violate your constitutional rights on a regular basis. I had my right to free association, free speech, and to educate my child taken away from me without clear and convincing evidence, which is in the American legal system. The precedence that's required in order to deprive you of your fundamental federally protected rights is called clear and convincing evidence. And this is what they require in order to take your child in a third-party child custody situation. My child ended up getting taken away from me because I used a baby monitor in my house, and because I yelled at the grandma, and I told her I was going to stop talking to her, and because her daughter she didn't know the baby mom very well, knocked up some hot chick, big boobs at the rape party, and so she hated me from the get-go. And then she tried to, what she did, break me and her up. And then she alienated me from my kid. And then she did it in order to prevent me from getting custody. And then her daughter moved out of her house and started neglecting my son, and got the kid taken away. And her mother filed for custody. Ended up getting a lawyer to lie. They used a baby monitor, yelled at her, was going to deny custody. I said I had done some mushrooms because I was dumb. I'm a little bit too honest. But I said it was like 6 months ago. Apparently that's not long enough. I smoked some pot. And then they said because I told the grandma that I was going to stop talking to her, that I was going to harm my son. And this is why I really, really hate these Democrats now. Because the people who put this law into place, it's called ORS 109.119. And I hate that number. You can hear the pain in my voice when I talk about it. That law is evil. And it's been used, these laws, the laws that are like it, that use a preponderance of the evidence. And what that means in layman's speak is that if you want to prove, let's say two parties have an interest in a case. Let's say it's over money. You guys both have 50% share over it. It's kind of like a coin toss in court. Like who's going to end up with it? If it's 50-50, you gotta, any sort of reason will count. And so this is called a preponderance of the evidence. And the idea that they used was, oh, well, the grandma, because they had enough time together, had a child-parent relationship, and so therefore they're an equal party in the court. And this violates our constitutional rights because you have a right to substantive due process under the United States Constitution. And in order to deprive you of your any of your fundamental federally protected rights, they are required to use clear and convincing evidence. And so when you say that America is fascist, that these cops are Nazis, you have absolutely no clue about our Constitution, how absolutely beautiful and amazing and wonderful it is. The way that the Constitution is set up, when you utilize the concept of originalism, which came up with by Judge Antonin Scalia, originalism. And so what this means is whatever the what the original meaning that whenever they made the law, the people, sorry, that was a WAPO article. Whenever they made the law, whatever the intent and the purpose of when they crafted that law was, we're supposed to go with that instead of what is called evolutionism, which is where you evolve the meaning of the law. And so this is what the leftists don't understand. They think Antonin Scalia is a horrible person. He's the demon of the Supreme Court, one of them up there with Roberts. And as it turns out, Scalia is awesome. He probably actually agreed with you on a lot of things that he voted the other way on. And the reason why is because there's no constitutionally protected right to an abortion. And you don't need a constitutionally protected right to an abortion because of the way the Constitution is set up. It's set up in such a way that if you vote and you change your laws and you update them and you participate in democracy, you don't need the Supreme Court. Right? The Supreme Court's only here to tell you about whether or not something is constitutional or not. It's up to you, the voter, like you. Person on the other side of the camera, it's up to you. You're the one that has to actually vote on the laws. And the problem with liberals historically is they go with this, and everybody else, but liberals are the worst because liberals are liberal with things. And they want to do the good thing. They want to be fair to everyone. But in the end, being fair to everyone is being fair to no one, because there's a real world. It has constraints, and constraints are a good thing. Like when you build a machine, you cannot build a perfect machine, nor do you need to build a perfect machine. You need to build a machine that accomplishes the goal that you're trying to accomplish in a manner that is suitable to your needs. And this is something, you learn as an engineer. You go overboard when you're designing something. Eventually you're like, wow, I put in so much work into that thing, and then we just didn't even use it. And eventually you get sick of putting all of this work into things and not using them, and then you get smarter. And that's what we're doing here on Real Simple News with our new camera and multi-studio setup. This is just one of the studio setups. There's new shows coming out pretty soon. There's going to be Real Simple News with weights. There we go. Weights. And we're going to do Real Simple News with jazz. What am I going? I'm going off on a tangent. Why am I even talking about this? So Antonin Scalia came up with this concept because liberals like to be liberal with things. They want to go with fairness, and they get outraged. This is the problem with fairness. There's nothing wrong with being fair, but it is a point of anger with people. If they feel like you have not been fair with them, they can create a hate mob and come after you. And systems don't really work well when they're fair. Like if you're just fair to everybody with a business, you're not going to make any money. If you are fair to everyone else around you, you're probably not going to have anything. You're going to be living in a socialist country. So it's good to have a system that is unfair. Our internet works on the principle of use fair when it's good, such as Netflix. When you stream a Netflix video, you do not want it to pause. But when everyone is watching Netflix, some people are going to be closer to the computers than other people. And because of the laws of physics, it's going to make it so you have more data bandwidth than other people. And because of this, you need to make Netflix needs to use a fair algorithm or a TCP algorithm, as opposed to a real-time video stream such as Skype, where you want the frames to you want to drop frames if your internet bandwidth dips, if your internet's not going as fast, you want to drop the frames so that you don't lag. Because if you're fair in one context, you'll lag. If you're unfair in another context, then you'll lag. So both systems have faults. You're supposed to use the system that works in the context of when you want it to use it. But the liberals always want to go with only fair, and they get very angry when you aren't fair. And what most people don't understand about fascism is that fascism actually came about from the women's suffrage movement. Swear to God, go over here on Wikipedia, even though Wikipedia is full of fake news. This is not news. If you read the Fascist Manifesto, you're gonna see that it has a lot of women's suffrage stuff. You read the Fascist Manifesto, you're like, all right, these guys aren't too bad, right? I mean, yeah, of course, but they didn't start out bad. They turned into genocidal maniacs because their system was set up in such a way that in order to maintain the system, you have to kill people in order to keep the system together. This is why that system was bad, not because they had a dictator, but because they killed and tortured people, right? Why did they kill and torture people? Because in order to keep a dictatorship, you have to do that. This is the same thing that the left is engaging in. And when you compare whatever these people are talking about, going back to the story, I know this was a long point that I made, is that there's a lot more suffering in the world. There's a lot of people who have it really, really bad. There's a lot of white people that have it really bad. Just because you're in the majority does not mean that you did not end up at the bottom of the pyramid of the majority. Because statistically speaking, you're going to end up on the bottom of the pyramid because it's the bottom of the pyramid. So it's not so groovy being a average white guy like myself. I'm not tall enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm never enough. And it's because more is expected of me. So that also leads to unhappiness in my life with women, with bad luck with money, people hating on me, because they don't understand the way that I think. And typically they come to the opposite conclusion of reality. And this should be the red flag, all hands on deck, red alert, that we're sliding down the slippery slope into authoritarianism, because they only care about themselves. They only care about whatever happened to them. Me personally, I've almost been murdered by black people 3 different times. I don't know if I've ever blacked out and done anything wrong, but I've never, ever harmed a black person in my life. Never, ever once. I have always been a good friend to people of color, and people in color of color includes the color white. Please, when you say people of color, I would like you to stop discriminating against the color white, because I'm not sure whether or not you took kindergarten or not, but white, color, white. This next article from NPR: police declare riot in Portland. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, that was the cover. I didn't read too far into this article. I do regret not reading farther into this article. We talked about the Austin thing. So what happened in Portland? I'm going to go back to this article because I'm here. So meanwhile, in downtown Portland, thousands gathered Saturday evening, breaching a fence around the federal courthouse building. Police said some of the protesters threw rocks and bottles over the fence, used power tools to try to cut through it. Well, we watched all this stuff. Okay. And then Seattle, they burned down the thing. All right. Watch the beginning of part 1 of this. All right. And so this is what's going to happen when you normalize riots. This next story from the Daily Mail: hundreds of unattended teenagers go on a destructive rampage at a mini golf center. Between 300 and 400 teenagers who were at a Memphis, Tennessee mini golf complex ended up going berserk after staffs refused to refund a faulty game machine. So this is racism. See, it started with them just rioting and looting over Donald Trump. And then it escalated into rioting and looting all over the place over petty things. And this is what's so scary about the slippery slope into authoritarianism, is the reasons why, the only reason why Adolf Hitler turned into a genocidal maniac is because he was taught how to kill. People are not born with the knowledge of how to kill. They are taught how to kill. Adolf Hitler was taught how to kill by Joseph Stalin, who taught Adolf Hitler how to use the poor people to kill the 1% in order to control a country. And he did so in a reign of terror from 1936 to 38. And right after they had committed what was called a terror famine, or a famine genocide, sorry, in the Ukraine. It was the Holodomor famine, and it killed like 7 to 12 million people. And it was this is one of the reasons why people hated Jews so bad back then. People hated Jews because they blamed them for things that other people did, which is why you should not hate on Jews, because you're blaming them for things that other people did when there's plenty of guilt to go around with all of the other group races and ethnicities and religions. Definitely should not be targeting any one group out of the other. So the Holodomor famine was when the Russian Jews controlled the Soviet or the USSR military. This is why they said that Jews wouldn't share, besides the gypsies, but they biased it towards their group, and then they committed this terror or famine genocide. They rose to power, and then after they committed this genocide and after they won World War II, Stalin then killed the people who committed this genocide. And the reason for that is because if you do any sort of thing like this for a dictator, you now have skills on how you can take power. You are now a threat to them. They've watched you do it to one person already, so now they're going to come kill you and take you out. And this is what's so terrifying about Black Lives Matter is all of the gang violence. The gang violence is just absolutely crazy. The black people commit 50% of the homicides in the United States. They kill as many people twice as many black on white homicides as there are white on black homicides. And there's 6 times more white people, so there's 12 times more black on white homicides. I've almost been murdered by a gangbanger from Atlanta. I've told this story already once on the show today. I've definitely had many people rob me, and I could have been killed any one of those times. Been victim to 2 home invasion robberies while I was home, 1 while I was not at home, and many other robberies. So this crime from the African American community, there's also a bunch of skis bag gangbanging white dudes, and then there's a bunch of gangbanging Latinos. And in the big cities, there's about somewhat near the same amount of white people, Latinos, and black people. So it's just a problem that's with this hip hop culture. It's not any one of the races in particular, but any sort of racism that you've experienced in your life ain't shit to the terror that I had to experience when I was held hostage by a serial killing gangbanger from Atlanta. When I had to be in a closet and attempt to claw out of a closet in a RV. And I had to deal with a 3-hour hostage situation with a black serial killer pointing a gun at a pregnant white woman. And I got robbed. And I understand, I didn't get killed, and a lot of people have been fucked up way worse, right? I'm recognizing that. But your racism ain't shit compared to the violence that I've had to experience in my life. It's not. Your pain is not more. You have not been discriminated against more than me for employment. No, I can verify. I have had some of the worst discrimination because I have been labeled as a misogynist, racist, xenophobic, far-right person because I preach de-radicalization and I really don't like Democrats. The Democratic Party. So I'm against the far right. I regularly speak out against authoritarianism in China on this show. I regularly I regularly endorse the people of Hong Kong to overthrow the dictator Winnie the Pooh and take back China to install a democracy. And this in mainland China is illegal. I can go to jail in China. So now I can't own a business in China or Hong Kong. But I don't care because Winnie the Pooh is a dictator, and fuck him. Fuck Winnie the Pooh. I think he needs to lose some weight. Right? Right. So, any of you black people, are you allowed to open up a business in mainland China? Are you allowed to go to Hong Kong? All right. Well, instantly, I'm more discriminated against than you are, depending on the country that we're in. And that has nothing to do with my race. That has everything to do with something that I said. And this is what the black people are doing. This next article from the Times of Israel says, oh, wait, hold on. You know, this one I was supposed to cover a long time ago. I had to debunk this one. This is from 20 days ago, but I couldn't sleep. So we're being thorough. And the audio on the show went down, so I tried to go to sleep so I could wake up and do it in the morning, but then I did it now. So let's debunk this. This article from CBS News says page cannot be found. And the reason why is probably because the article was fake. They were claiming, they were claiming that these groups were hate groups. Damn, that's what I get for you snooze, you lose. They said, I forget which group it was. It was some immigration think tank in D.C. They said they were a hate group. And it's because the Southern Poverty Law Center said they were a hate group. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, if you're not aware of it, is absolute bullshit. SPLC, no, we got to look up, just Google SPLC. And here, got to do Google SPLC. So this, you got to keep, this is this stuff. The hate groups map, the hate watch, ways to give. When you're analyzing the business model of a company, which I do a lot, you want to Google them and take note of what their search, what the companies you're trying to emulate, what search results do they get? How do they pop up in the search results? That's their business model because they're smart. Their business model is donate money to the hate watch thing. And the thing that you have to understand, it says handles difference between news and opinions responsibly. Clearly labels advertising NA. I always thought that one was kind of weird. NewsGuard is kind of like a news certification group that tells you whether or not a website is bunk. So these people, these SPLC people, are bunk as it gets. They put out this hate map, and what they do is they're a bunch of far leftists, and most of them are underpaid. They're doing it because they're doing it for charity or whatever, and really it's like a scam on university students, and they're really stressed out because they're underpaid and overworked, and they have $500 million in their war chest, and they're creating a perpetual boogeyman in order to drum up donations. And if the boogeyman ever goes away, their donations will go away. And so this is why the SPLC is problematic, because when you look at their hate map, where's the hate map level? So the hate map, and then it's at how do you see the hate map level? Hate map. See, in order for them to get donations, they need to put as many dots on this graph as they can. So let's go back over time. If these dots go away, their funding goes away. They're not listing the hate map level because it's at a 1. So it's the lowest that it can get. In order for them to drum up donations, they have to make it seem like there's a lot of hate groups. So the BLM Antifa Nazis are out there protesting about perceived injustices for their equality movement so they can get more money for the white whaman because they're underpaid. And if you question whether or not they're underpaid, they're going to come after you. Xena social justice warriors pop out and be like, where? Okay, this guy popped up. Why did Stephen? Okay, Stephen Molyneux popped up. Stephen Molyneux was banned recently because they claimed that he's alt-right because he made some statements that were classified as eugenics. And so when you look up eugenics, people just think it's, oh, this is horrible. Eugenics is the form of a set of beliefs and practices aimed at improve genetic quality of human population, historically by excluding people in groups judged to be inferior and promoting groups judged to be superior. So, the people who engage in this behavior are the ones who are mating, the ones who are having the babies. It's not the other people trying to protect the people from having the white women from having sex with black people so that they can get some. If you're not up in there, your genes are dying. So it's kind of a life and death issue for your body that you stick your penis into her vagina and you do the in-out and make a baby. And if you don't make 2.1 of those babies, the population goes down, which would be great. But then you have an issue where the population of Africa is just absolutely skyrocketing. Let's look at the thing because I was trying to find that data for a while and then I found it. So where is the OneDrive? They've moved it. I don't like their new organization scheme. So here's the projected population of the world. UN regional projection population from 2015 to 200. So here's Africa. Woo, damn. And here's Asia. Woo, whoa. Birth rate in Africa is like 5-6 people per woman. So is there any sort of guarantee if we reduce our population that like Africa and China or Asia aren't just going to like take over the world with this population projection, right? What does this have to do with story? So, Stephen Molyneux, they were claiming, is alt-right. I've listened to some of his podcasts, not too many of them, but he seemed like a decent guy. He's a software engineer. He was also, too, like me, kicked out of the tech industry for not agreeing with everything that they say. So they say most of these things they say are on a YouTube channel. And so any of these things, you go to the YouTube channel and it says video has been removed for violating YouTube's policies. And so there's no proof that any of this is true. There's none. So here's, let's just scroll through an example. Well, the first one here, because they always try to put the demonizing stuff here. I don't view humanity as a single species. Do you know that actually Asians actually have part Neanderthal genes? There's like 1% of Asians that have Neanderthal genes, actually. But what the guy is speaking about is that criminals act like animals. And because they commit crimes, it's like they're a different species of people. And so this was taken out of context. This next one, the whole breeding arena of the species needs to be cleaned the F up. And what... So, you might say that this man is evil, right? Because he's saying, what is this? Screaming racism at people because blacks are collectively less intelligent is insane. Sounds racist, but the proof is in the pudding. Here's the GPAs of white people, Asians, African Americans, and Latinos. And as you can see, coming in last place here with baggy pants, we have at the bottom the African Americans in the embarrassingly low, approximately where my GPA was at in engineering school. So don't feel too bad. When I worked as an engineering outreach advisor for an engineering school at Portland State University in Oregon, they told us we were only looking for Asians, Latinos, and women because the black people's grades weren't good enough. As you can see from this chart, they're not good enough to get into engineering school. I hate to break it to you, but the line is actually at the 3.0 mark, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do think that a GPA is kind of subjective, you know. But the problem is people try to advocate that we need to lower the bar for the African Americans, and that's just never, it's not going to happen, dude. Like, people dedicate their lives to being engineers and scientists, and they're doing 4.0, 5.0 work. So your 2.69 there ain't gonna cut it, and it's not racist to say that, but it is to the SPLC because they see. So here's another example. It says you cannot run a high IQ society on low IQ people. With these immigrants are going to fail. And so what they did was they inserted here white and non-white in where it was not. They took the sentence out of context and then they filled in the context with what they wanted you to believe. Oops. Sorry. This is the problem with the SPLC, is they're liars. They're far leftist. They do not engage in good journalism. They underpay their staff, and the result that they get is fake news. Because when you don't pay for your news, you get fake news. It's kind of like if you don't want to pay for good drugs, you get fake and sketchy drugs. Right. It just makes sense for us to do that. What else is there? We are how many minutes into the show? 51 minutes. I covered that. I'm glad. I wanted to cover that. We got another one that I wanted to cover. This is old, but I'm covering things that are a little bit old right now. This next one from the Daily Mail. BLM supporter posts hateful messages on Facebook of mom shot dead after saying all lives matter. Jessica Dottie Whittaker, 24, was killed early on the morning of July 5th, moments after she and her friends got into an argument with Black Lives Matter supporter in Park in Indianapolis. Whittaker and her fiancé, Jose Ramirez, and two others were reportedly walking along the canal. One of them allegedly used the word N-word. A nearby group of people heard the phrase, and an argument broke out. The other group reportedly began shouting Black Lives Matter, prompting the Whittaker to respond, All Lives Matter. The group then settled their differences and parted ways before someone opened fire in Whittaker moments later, killing her. Hundreds of people have been committed on posts on Whittaker's Facebook page in recent days, with several sharing scathing messages about her being a racist. And so people do not just, when you snap your fingers, just become racist. People evolve over time to be racist, and they do so because they dislike the people of that race that they knew, and they view them as all being the same, which I personally don't think that all people are the same. It's been my experience doing raves that just because somebody looks like you, acts like you, wears cool clothes, does not mean that they're not cool and won't completely screw you over at a moment's notice. I learned that the hard way. And these people, this is why I joined the Walk Away movement, is because I realized that even though I had been feminist my entire life, helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest, that I'd known people for over a decade, and that they would turn on me for criticizing feminism. That's when I started posting meninist jokes, and people started flipping out on me. I did it as an experiment, and it actually yielded those results. And I did not know what walk away was at that point in time. I thought it was stupid. I had heard about it, but I thought that the dude was just an idiot because I was still a Democrat at that point in time. I thought he was just some Trump supporter. Didn't understand. And once the hate was directed at me, then I left. And that was what made me realize that the equality movements are stinky poo-poo, because in order to keep this fair system, you have to kill people in order to maintain it, because people aren't just going to give you their shit. This next article from the Daily Mail, coronavirus, recovered patients only develop 14% immunity. Scientists at the University of Melbourne found that a type of immunity produced through antibodies was only modest in a study of 41 people, said the vaccine is needed to protect people in the future. And so the reason why that's true is because there's 6 different strands of COVID. I swear, man, the people who run the mainstream media don't know jack shit about math, dude. So, what is 1 divided by 6? About 16.7%. Well, it was 14%. Wonder why those 2 numbers are in the same scale. Well, the answer would be the same reason why you have to get a flu shot each year. And that's because not all strands of COVID are deadly. There's 1 strand of COVID that is the most deadly of all of the other strands, and they can test you to see whether or not you had that strand in order to find clusters of it. And there's arguments to be made that that one might be justified in invading people's privacy. I'm not sure. I think that nature is going to be a superior option here because people interfering has with our freedoms has historically always turned bad, and these lockdowns so far have been complete bullshit because most people get COVID at a home when they either go visit someone or the people they infect, the people that they live with. Because no matter where you go get COVID, unless you're homeless, you're always going to go home. This is a fact of the universe. So the only thing that you can do then is to limit the amount of time between the transmission of COVID from one house to another. And the only way that you can do that is by giving up your freedom and your life. And the only thing that you're going to do when you do that is you're going to prolong the time period of the Gaussian curve. So if you want to see detailed numbers of the COVID death count, you can go to covidusa.net. We've had about 150,000 deaths, and then average cases per day. So here's the ones that they tracked. And then we see that there was a peak, and then we went down, and then we had a corresponding spike to the George Floyd protests, or the Democrat race riots of 2020. And it went down, and then it went back up again. And so when we analyze this, we can see, well, we went back to... So if this curve was going to go down, it would go down. So let's look at the UK COVID death counts. And so the UK, we looked at this last time. Here's the UK death graph. And so it went down, and then you can see, it went back up, and then it went back down. So clearly, the COVID death count is going back up. But the mortality rate is declining. But we have a problem with this test thing here, is that it includes all of the strands of COVID. And it's a Gaussian curve. So what we did here is we had one Gaussian curve. And had the... had the Democrat race riots not happened, we would not be seeing an uptick. But this is, it looks that way when you look at it on a graph. But you have to look at the total deaths in a little bit different of a form. you do have to look at them in the logarithmic form, and you do have to look at them in the linear scale. And then when you see this, we see the number of tests are just skyrocketing. And so this is the clue of what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell you news articles, and they're trying to sell you tests. But how much did it really go up? Because we're going to see what are we going to see? I don't know. I'm losing my point. When we add in all the cases of COVID that aren't deadly into the total number of cases, then your statistics get completely off. Where's the time? I'm over an hour. That's going to be it for me. I'm logging out. Thank you for watching Real Simple News on Wednesday, July 29th. Or hold on. It's Tuesday, July 28th on this show, but now it's Wednesday. Until next time, farewell, sayonara, aloha, and peace.